All right, and we're live. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Musetta Stone Book Club. And yeah, so I guess I'll just kind of go through and introduce each and every one of our hosts and stuff. So I'll start with myself. I'm Maddie. Uh, I do music things, so I guess I'm a music teacher, but I'm of the private teacher variety. I do one-on-one things, and then I also do a lot of editing, and I run Musetta Stone. I guess the next person would be Amanda. So Amanda, did you want to just say hi and tell people what you do?
Hi, I'm Amanda. I teach elementary school from kindergarten to grade 7. I am the music teacher and also the teacher librarian. So throughout the week, I see like 450 kids. And yeah, if you see me looking, it's because we just got a puppy and we're just making sure he's not chewing things.
The puppy is really cute.
Puppy is really cute.
Yeah.
Puppy's a little jerk sometimes.
All right, and our last host is Karen. Why don't you introduce yourself as well?
All right, I'm Karen, and I'm also a music teacher, a public school music teacher. I just finished a contract at a middle school where it was grades 6 to 8.
Ugh.
I've taught, it was lovely. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Most people kind of, yeah, that age group, but it was very enjoyable. And but I've taught K through 12, and I just absolutely love teaching music. So we can straight on into the book.
Yeah. Okay, so our book this time around is this one, Bel Canto by Ann Patchett, and this was Amanda's pick, I believe. And I guess what I'll do for this time is I'll read the back. But I guess in the future, whoever picks books, they can read the back. So I guess Karen, you'll be reading the back of the next one. But I'll read this one for tonight. So this is like kind of like the setting that kind of keeps us up there. So somewhere in South America, at the home of the country's vice president, a lavish birthday party is being held in honor of the powerful businessman Mr. Hosokawa. Roxanne Koss, opera's most revered soprano, has mesmerized the international guests with her singing. It is a perfect evening until a band of gun-wielding terrorists takes the entire party hostage. But what begins as a panicked, life-threatening scenario slowly evolves into something quite different, a moment of great beauty as terrorists and hostages forge unexpected bonds and people from different continents become compatriots, intimate friends, and lovers. So that's what it says in the back. So I guess let's go with overall impressions. Amanda, did you want to take us there first?
Okay, so with this, I'll be honest, I picked it because the back just looked so interesting, and I had really high hopes, but overall, I was mostly just confused by several things that happening. It's like here's a chunk, and then there's a little thing that builds, and then here's a completely different chunk, and then here's something else that doesn't make sense. So that was pretty much my general thing of the entire thing was just confusion. I just didn't get it. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's overall impressions, right? So
Yeah.
thank you. Karen, what about you?
Okay, this isn't normally the type of book that I read. I actually was really struggling with it, and I ended up listening to the audiobook instead.
I love it.
Um,
How was the voice? Was the voice good?
no. No, I was kind of a little bit upset but it's okay. Like I got into it and I finished it.
Yeah.
I did like how I think what you were trying to say, Amanda, was that it was just it was a lot of capsules of different people. It sort of zoomed into one person and then zoomed out and zoomed back in, and it was just sort of the relationships between these people. And I mean, I like that. It's just not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But I thought it was kind of enjoyable and quite topical, actually, over what just happened in France
Hmm.
back in December. That whole music concert being taken over by terrorists. I thought it was pretty topical for our first book.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll go last. Yeah, I don't usually read this type of fiction either, so it was difficult. As you guys know, I got wrapped up in some of the names. I hated some of those names.
Yeah,
I
you did.
wasn't a big fan, but we'll get to it. I also agree. I think it was just kind of like I would read through books and I was like, oh, cool, this is kind of cool, and then all of a sudden that character that I read like 20 pages about would just disappear for 200 pages.
Hmm.
Like I didn't read about the father again after he brought in the music. Like
Yeah.
just wasn't there anymore, and I was like, what's going on? Like I mean,
Yeah.
I got it. I was like, okay, there's a lot of characters, and they're trying to kind of siphon through. But obviously, there was like a core group that I guess she wanted us to care for.
Hmm.
That just kind of like I don't know. It just felt it felt a little bit stinted. It wasn't like this happened and then this happened and then this happened. It wasn't like that. It was like a little bit more advanced than that. But just like I found myself struggling in certain parts of the book, and then like breezing through some other parts as well. Like it, yeah. But like I said, I mean, I don't read this type of fiction, so it could just be me not really knowing how to read something like this.
Maybe.
But
I mean, you normally read fantasy, and
yeah,
fantasy usually
yeah,
has tons and tons of characters, and
Yeah.
I mean, same thing. I'm going, why can't I just switch? My brain just maybe because we expected those characters that we invested time in to come back.
Yeah.
mhm,
Maybe
yeah,
that's
The
why.
thing, I do read these kinds of books, and I usually enjoy them. It just seems like every time you find an interesting character, they're gone. It's like what you said about the father. It's like, oh, the father's really interesting. He helped her get the music. He shares his love of music with the other father, and then all of a sudden, it's like here's a tiny little clip that you're hoping for more, and then it just kind of,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it seems like there was more thought into the secondary characters in that big core group than anything else.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I mean, like even at the very beginning, I guess we can jump into characters and stuff. Like, I mean, when they finally thinned the herd from like they forced all the women out and all the sick people out, and then they're like, oh, and then here are the most important male characters that we want to stay. I was like, okay, but even then, there's like still like what almost 60 people, including the terrorists. Right?
Yeah.
I was like, that's
Yeah.
60 characters, and it's like what 300 pages. How am I
Yeah.
supposed to care about all of these people? And I think what got me was the fact that, like okay, if it was 60 characters, that's fine. If they were just like, okay, of these 60 characters, we're not really going to care about these 40. They're just kind of there. But she tried to make us care about every single one of them. Like,
Yeah.
every single one had a name, every single one had a background, every single one needed, Jen or Gen to translate for them. So it was like constantly like I was like, I didn't care about the Russians. I
Yeah.
really didn't care about the
Oh,
Russians.
that was it. I was reading and I'm like, there are Russians here, and that was
They
like
were Germans. They were Germans, and I was
Russian.
I honestly only cared about the Japanese and only those two characters. I didn't care about anybody of the other ones. I was like, who is this other guy, Kato, who can play piano? I don't care.
Yeah.
He kind of came up from nowhere, and then there was Simon, who you're kind of like, he pops in and out. Like, I love my wife.
Oh,
I don't love my wife.
Mr. Theobald?
Is he the guy who
Yeah.
owns the house?
No, that was
No,
uh,
the vice president owns the
yeah.
house.
Simon is the French guy who like has his wife's like scarf,
Yeah,
and he's the one that cooks.
Oh, okay,
He's
yeah,
the one that
yeah,
knows how to cook.
yeah.
Yeah.
And vice
Like,
president was like another Japan. No, was it another Japanese guy?
there were actually multiple Japanese people. There were like 4 in total. We only got to know 3 of them.
Yeah, but they're the vice president. But they don't. The thing is, every time they comment it, it's just they comment as or they refer to him as the vice president. So his name keeps on slipping my head or my mind.
It's like isn't it like Rubio or something like that?
I
Rubio
want,
Iglesias or something like that.
No, I think that's his name.
that's
Well,
like
it's like
no,
Enrique Iglesias, right?
that's- Julio Iglesias is the famous singer.
No, not Julio. Rubio.
Rubio.
The owner.
I feel like it's. See, the thing is, they talked about what's his name so much that I thought he was the vice president, but I know I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're moving into characters, so like, why don't we just officially say we're moving into characters? Why
Okay.
were there three generals? Did we really need three generals?
Ruben Iglesias, by the way.
Ruben, yeah, they're okay. Yeah, so I was close. I was close. But
Well,
why
it
did we
was
need three generals? Did we need three generals? It was just like, oh look, these three generals are see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Could
Like
they, yeah, could they as a character have been mushed into one?
one?
yeah.
Yeah.
They could have, but for some
I
reason
just don't,
they all have their own little character,
yeah,
and the
But
only person you really get to know is like General Benjamin.
yeah,
yeah. Well, because he
Is
was the reasonable one. He was the one that played chess, right?
yeah,
Okay.
he's the
No,
one that's logical, reasonable.
I wonder if it was like they put those three generals in simply because like she wanted to create this thing that like, oh, these are literally just a ragtag group of people who are trying to work together, and that's why it's so easy for one general to supersede the other one because they themselves don't know how to deal with this. Like they've recruited teenagers, they have no clue, and
well,
they
it,
just live in the
it
jungle.
helps with that chaotic factor that if you have three generals, who's actually leading them, and then it makes a little bit maybe more sense that when the president wasn't there, they kind of went, well, now what? And they just didn't know what to do. It just adds to the idea that they hadn't really planned everything through.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I had an issue with the president. Like he was introduced as we want him to be a hostage, and then he was just never heard from it ever again.
Oh yeah, 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 the president
Just
of the country, the
yeah,
unknown country,
sorry. Like
which is probably which one did I say? Peru.
he was the
It's probably
he was the one
Peru.
that was watching his soap opera.
Yeah, the
Like,
Maria soap opera or whatever.
I'm sorry, but if you're second in command of your country has been taken hostage, you think you want to do something about
Well,
that.
I mean, they might have. They just like the only outside source we ever got was the Swiss guy.
Messner, yeah.
Yeah, we
We
never ever got a chance to talk to people outside, right?
Yeah, and I think the focus of the story was the relationships within the house,
Mhm.
and it had nothing to do with what was going
Yeah.
on outside.
Which I would agree with, but it does make you wonder that like they put this magnifying glass on that group of 60 and then they make a further magnifying glass, but there is just it ended the book in itself. I just have so many questions all the way through that just never got answered.
We'll get to that ending. We've
Yeah,
promised
well,
not to talk about that ending until we get there. But I mean, what did you guys feel about like all those little teenagers that we found out the names for? Like, I don't remember all of them. I remember three, the two
I
girls,
did
and then
agree.
Ishmael.
Oh, what
Oh,
about the star,
I remember.
the
Yeah,
singer?
look, yeah. So and then you have Beatrice
Oh,
and then Carmen. And those were the only three that I remembered the names of. All the other ones, like, oh, there's the big boy. That's great. Oh, it's a big
Yeah.
boy.
do you think the author maybe tried to focus on too many people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Although, I mean, it makes sense in the setting that she was creating to have that many characters. Like I'm not questioning the amount of characters. I just questioned the amount of focus she gave on certain characters that just ultimately I didn't care about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
I
just
agree.
like, oh, it's great. Isn't it great that the smallest, tiniest, shyest boy just so happens to be the most, has the most beautiful voice, right? It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
great. And then also like it just springs him out as a new character, and I was like, but I don't care about him. I spent 80% of the book not caring about him, and now you're making me care about him.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like to think of it as like little vignettes where you get introduced to this person and then it zooms out and then it zooms into another person, that zooms out and then it zooms into another person. And our common thread is the soprano and Gen and Mr. Hosokawa, and
Yeah.
that's basically, those are our threads that tie everybody together.
Mhm.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like it's just kind of exhausting to be like, okay, I'm gonna commit, my connecting with Jen or Gen. I'm gonna commit connecting with Mr. Hakasawa, and then all of a sudden, this other Japanese guy knows how to play piano beautifully, and you're kind of like, what? Where'd that come from?
Well,
Yeah.
I think she was trying to play on the culture and tradition of the Japanese culture, right? Not showing off, not being arrogant or proud about your skills, and just hiding it, right? Because like he's there for business, and unless like I think that was kind of it. I don't know. I think I mean Amanda, you and I we read We Are Water. right?
And yes, and which one's We Are Water?
It was the one with Orion and Annie O and the family, and how she becomes a lesbian.
Yeah, but I read that a long time ago,
Yeah,
a while
but I
ago.
mean,
Oh no,
like
no,
the reason.
actually no, I haven't started We Are Water yet.
Okay, well, okay. The reason why I liked that book was because it was only like there was a core group. It was the family that was
Yeah,
the core group of characters, and then you had a couple of side characters here and there, and they only came in if it was like a flashback scene of an older year,
yeah,
or like a future scene.
yeah,
But what was really great was that whenever the character it was in that character's view, there would be a bold name of the character that we're going through.
yeah,
And then I was like, okay, I'm switching from this character to that character, which is kind of like Game of Thrones, right? Each there's a house, and then they deal with it. Whereas this one, sometimes I would read and be like, oh, we're switching now.
yeah, yeah,
Like I mean, and I get it, right? Like she puts like the little like spacing like this here
yeah,
to make a change, but like it would have been nice, like, because I'll read it, because like sometimes she'll go right away and be like, this person is thinking like this. I was like, oh, okay, we're this person. But then sometimes I'll read through a paragraph, be like, which
yeah.
perspective am I going through right now? And
And that,
that's what got me sometimes. I was like, there's just, I wasn't a big fan of some of the main characters, by the way.
yes,
I thought I didn't, you guys know, I do not like the name Roxanne. I do not like that name. Why Roxanne? Right?
Put on red light.
Yeah. And
That's all that went on in my head.
yes, right? Yeah. And here's the thing. Yeah, all the power to you for your mother and father giving you that name. That's totally fine. But
yep,
as a famous person, you could potentially change your name. I mean, a lot of famous people will change their name. Like, the problem with Roxanne is that it doesn't scream opera singer to me.
No.
no,
Right?
it sounds like a cabaret dancer.
It's, okay, the name, I was like, okay, maybe she was picking that name because she wanted the characters to sound bitchy, but she wasn't, right?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
wasn't at all. She was just
She was
upfront.
entitled.
Yeah, she was just entitled, but not bitchy. Like,
But it's just one of those names that it's not a common name even. Like you don't it's not like you would run really across like a Roxanne in any kind of in all the years I've been teaching and going to school and seeing people. I've never met an actual Roxanne.
It's of a certain age.
mhm.
It is of a certain age.
Yes, and
But
she was in her 40s.
Yeah, it just seems like there's, how some names just have a connotation to them? This
Yeah.
is one of those names that you hear it and you're like, oh, Roxanne, that does not sound like a name that would be a professional musician. I don't
I
know
mean,
if it's something in your mind, but
it's kind of douchey to say, but I think there are certain names that just doesn't allow you to think that way. Like, there are certain names that, like, if she was a rock star,
yes, that would
name
work.
would be kind of cool.
That would work.
But like, but she's an opera singer. I don't know, like, unless she pronounces Rosanne or something like that. Like, she pronounces it like French. It's just, for me, I got stuck on that name for a while, and then it wasn't just Roxanne. It was Roxanne Coss.
Crosses.
And then I kept on switching it in my head to Roseanne Cox all the time. like maybe a little bit of dyslexia in myself. I was like, no, that's not her name, and then it would throw myself out of the book.
Oh no.
That's funny. You know what? I actually, when I read it, I thought it was Roxanne Cross until about 10 seconds ago. I'm like, oh, it is Cross.
Yeah, I know.
I thought it was Cross.
See, it's weird because I'm hearing you pronounce some of these names, and I'm going, well, that's not how they pronounced it in the audiobook.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
really?
who's this Benjamin person that you're talking about? Throughout the entire book, they pronounced it Benjamin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
It was
yeah,
fine.
okay,
Okay,
yeah.
I get it now.
So is it Gen then it's on the audiobook?
It was Gen in the audiobook. When I was first reading it, though, it was definitely a Gen in my head.
I thought
Yeah.
it was Gen too.
Yeah. Well, it's Japanese. They don't have the j sound; they have a g
Yeah.
sound. So it's
Yeah.
Gen.
Then
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What did we think of Roxanne Koss, the character, not just her name?
I just thought it was weird. Like she was so, like you said, she's so entitled, and she's like, "I am the star. You have to let me go."
There's this one line that pretty much just summed up how I thought about her.
I'm thinking about when she's yelling at the what's his name? And he's like, you let me go right now.
Okay.
Wait, wait,
Well, I mean that's fine because she was just scared, right? No, no. This is the one line. He was a good accompanist. He was punctual while he
Oh,
was dying. That's the only thing she said about her accompanist. That he she liked him because he was punctual. Was that
yeah.
the only thing you can say?
to
I
be
was
fair,
like,
he
years
was
of working with him,
he
though.
was sort of a he gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, well, I mean, because he professed his love to her, like right beside her on a plane, right?
Yeah, she's
And
just
then
kind
got
of
all like touchy.
you.
He had a little touch of stalkerish in there.
Little bit.
But I think what really got me was the fact that like she said that out loud, but then we also heard her mental dialogue, and she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, this is how you're supposed to cope with this. You're supposed to think of like the best thing that you can say about this person. Positivity. He was a good accompanist. He was punctual.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry if he was kind of rude or before, but like, I don't know. I felt kind of mean. If that's the only good thing you can say about this person, maybe you shouldn't say it at all.
So here's this is a little bit of my bias. You know that whole stereotype that goes with singers that they're just full of themselves.
Mhm.
I mean, okay, I saw that with her, but then it was reinforced the entire time because all of the men loved her.
Yeah.
They were enchanted with her, and she was just
And
like magical creature that they just couldn't touch, and it was like.
a couple of the girls too, like Carmen loved her. She's like, sometimes she would let me crawl into bed with her and sleep
Yeah,
with her.
what was up with that? Like, was she trying to be motherly or something?
But
Because
this is the thing
she
about
had no kids.
her. But that's the thing about her character is like she comes off as this snobby, entitled kind of cow, and then a few pages
Cold.
later, yeah, cold, and then all of a sudden she's letting this little girl sleep in her bed. Like she gets a room to herself. All of a sudden, this girl sleeps in her bed. All of a sudden, she randomly takes a lover who.
Oh yeah, and she like endangered a bunch of people to get that lover into her room.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. What? Ah!
Right.
Yeah. I did not understand everybody putting her on that pedestal and just being like, she's the most magnificent person ever. Sure,
Well,
she's got a
and-
point, but
She
is her
is
personality?
She is opera's most revered soprano.
Well, she's a sucky human being.
Yes.
Like, okay, so
man.
I was telling Amanda this before we started. I was listening to an interview with the author, and it was on NPR, and she was explaining her inspiration for Roxanne Koss was
Oh, geez.
Renee Fleming.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. So, but
Ooh.
I think she meant
Oh.
not her person, but it was still kind of like, oh, okay. Is this what you think opera singers are like?
Because
that
Renee
falls
Fleming is very commercial.
And that falls in line kind of with that stereotype, right? Like and it's part of what they do, right? Their job is to get gussied up like that and sing these amazing songs, and that powerful voice from sometimes a very small little body. So I don't know if that is.
They mentioned that she was really short.
Yeah, she said she looks small out of her dress, which I get, but I think if that's all you see, right? Like how many people really know professional opera singers? And if all you see is how they look on stage, then you get that persona and that connotation of like, oh, she's that person. So
Mhm.
Do you think she was completely stiff and cold because, I mean, she couldn't really talk with anybody, but then she was still kind of stuck in that I'm being paid for this gig and I didn't want to be here to begin with, because she whines and complains about not wanting to be there. And
yeah.
so is that because of her situation that she's like that?
I don't. Maybe it's a coping mechanism. Like she's just like, this is like, okay, well, I guess I'm missing all these shows. I guess I'll never perform in South America ever again.
Yeah. But that's such a
and-
little teenager thing to say,
Oh yeah, yeah, and then like the minute she finds a pianist, she's like, oh look, he can be replaced, totally replaced. We're gonna practice 6 hours a day, which by the way is impossible for a singer. 6 hours is not possible. But she's like, I'm going to practice my scales every day. I'm going to be okay with it. No one's going to complain about practicing scales every day. Everyone's going to love my voice because my voice is so pretty.
But her voice was the
God.
only thing she had a writing on, and then all of a sudden, and that was the thing, like that little tiny passage of like she was singing, and then all the kidnappers outside just stopped and listened to her beautiful voice and fell in love with her instantly, and you're like, come on, come on. But that's enforcing that whole stereotype of that pedestal that Karen was talking about.
Book 2, you're gonna find out she's a witch.
That's true.
She's gonna have magic powers, powers of seduction. You know.
I would have loved that twist.
Oh my God, that was just.
Wait, you're reading a fantasy now? Yay!
I'm just gonna this is going on the bookshelf behind some other books.
Oh no, okay. And you know what's really funny is that when I started reading this book, I got called in to do some work in GNS in both schools, and both the music teachers had this book on their shelf.
Really?
Like everyone that I knew had read this, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's a great book." And I finished reading it, and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess this is popular."
Yeah.
I don't think this is a good book. Like, it's not a bad book, but
See,
like,
I always wonder about that when everybody's read it and they all profess that it's a good book, which makes you wonder, well, how many books do you normally read?
Yeah.
I know both of you are avid readers, and I read a ton too, and so which makes me think that we've got a lot more experience to draw from.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But are these books good because people say they're good, or is it good just because it's actually good?
well, I wonder if it's
love
literally good because people I wonder if it's good because it's like, oh, hey, finally a book that focuses on classical music.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And then and the only classical thing about this is the fact that they drop 3 names of arias, and that's it. Like, her personality isn't even very classical. Like, we all know some opera singers that are not like this, that are very, very beautiful human beings that would that have a facade on stage, and it's only for stage. And when they're human beings and you're getting drunk with them, they're totally nice people.
Well, okay, so I was in that same interview because I was looking up the next book that we're reading, and it said on the back that she was a trained violinist, and I went, oh, well, I wonder if Ann Patchett is a musician, because that would sort of influence how I thought about how she wrote it. And in that interview, she outright said, before I started this, I didn't know anything about opera. I just would sit down and listen to things, and I read books and books and books. So she's coming from that non-artist view. So it explains why a lot of the characters focus on their admiration of music rather than the being of a musician, but the observer of the musician.
Mm-hmm.
I guess personally for myself, I would have liked her. I guess we're spending a lot of time on this character, but that's good.
She's she's the star, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think she tried to make Roxanne seem vulnerable, but in really dumb ways. It's just like, oh, I guess I'll have to wear other people's clothes, and I'll feel vulnerable because these are not my clothes. These are so silly. These clothes are so silly. This sweater's so big on me. But I'm still gonna be a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just if there was some more inner turmoil, or where she realizes hey, I'm not on stage anymore. I can try to be nicer to people, or maybe her personality was just, I just like to be quiet. But that's fine, right? And that's okay. But this whole I'm an opera singer, therefore I am demanding, and therefore I want all these things, and I deserve all these things, and I'm great. It felt too cliche as an opera singer kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt about the romance with her and Mr. Haskawa, but I was not
What romance?
at all because it felt like it was more him just being like, oh, yay, I love her voice, therefore I love her. Oh, look, we're stuck in a room together, and she's lonely. We can't understand each other, but we love each other. And it didn't do anything for me at all.
I would agree with that, just because it seemed like there's so much chunk of the book where they didn't even talk or relate, and even when they did, there was Gen saying, like, he says, thank you.
Yeah.
And that is, like, the extent to their communication. All of a sudden, she's like, I'd like to take him to bed.
Mhm.
And you're like, where did this come from?
Well, I mean, do you remember that one scene where Gen gets pulled aside by the Russian, and then he's like, I want to profess my feelings, and like that part where he's talking about it, and he's going on this huge tangent, and Gen's just like, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I felt about Mr.
Everything.
Kurosawa and Roxanne, except the fact that Gen was never there. So apparently he wasn't needed to like talk about feelings because they didn't ever talk about feelings. Like I think you're right in the sense that it wasn't a I don't even think it wasn't a romance. It was like a relationship out of convenience.
Mhm.
You know?
Well, well, that's the question. Is like, was it an actual romance, or is it just like these two people are lonely and she was horny and she knew that he liked her, and there you go.
It probably was. Okay, so at least he was just like, okay, so she's here because of me, and I feel bad, but she has a really beautiful voice, and I like her voice.
Yeah.
I don't remember her mentioning anything about him that she liked, other than the fact that he was quiet.
Like anybody. She didn't like anybody. She was that quiet, kind of sullen, pouty girl. Carmen. Okay, she liked Carmen.
Only person that I felt like she actually had a genuine interest in, and that was because he could be her little project.
That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, and I would think sometimes she seemed to like Carmen because she's like, come snuggle with me in the bed,
And
or
I'll braid your hair.
yeah, or braid my hair. But even that is like braid my hair is more like, when I heard that, I'm like, hey, Cinderella, braid my hair, fix my dress. Like that kind of thought came to me more than the caring part of her.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably move on. I have this thing about, okay, so obviously the author was trying to create some type of Stockholm syndrome type of situation.
Yeah.
Right?
No, sorry, I would disagree with that, but don't hate me.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's just like they're like, oh, let's try to make the best out of the decision. But it was so weird because it wasn't like the terrorists were terrorizing.
Yeah. So that's why I disagree with you. It's not really Stockholm, because the Stockholm is the idea that the other person is treating you poorly, but you're still forming an attachment to them. Whereas this was sort of the opposite. It was like, oh, hey, we're in a terrible situation, and look what we're in now. I mean, weren't the generals by the end of it going, I wish this situation would go on and on and on, but they were wanting it to never end.
But even in the beginning, I kind of, right from the beginning, where they're like, oh, the president's not here, what do we do? It's almost like they kind of gave up and just settled for that. Like you said, like they settled for that stalemate. They're like, yeah, okay, I guess we'll do this. Here are demands. They're repetitive over and over and over again. And it's like, it's almost like they just don't care that they're not being met.
Well, maybe it wasn't don't care. It was just they had to adapt to the point. Like, first of all, they didn't know how to adapt to the situation. No. Because it was single-minded, right? Their whole plan was just to infiltrate this mansion and just get the president. They hadn't thought about beyond that, right? They hadn't thought about what ifs and whatever, right? So like they were trying really hard to figure out what was going on. But then I think it was just the fact that once they lost control of the kids and like their group, that they resigned themselves. I think the symbology was when he got was it General Benjamin or Benjamin? When he got excited about the chess. That was, for me, the breaking point. Was where, like, that was like, oh, okay, so now he's in on it, too.
Yeah.
Was when he realized, like, oh, hey, someone knows how to play chess. We can play chess, right? And that's when even the generals kind of caved into the situation. because I think like long before that, like his like I guess little ragtag group of terrorists had already given in to the situation. Like I mean, the TV was the symbolism for most of the kids, right? Gen was Carmen, and then that chess was him giving in to like what was happening, right? They were still trying to keep order. Like I mean, there was at one point where like, oh, everyone's going to go outside, everyone should go outside, right? And then all the people are like, okay, we're going to line up and hold our guns. And I was like, but what's the point? Like you've already spent all this time telling us about how everyone just likes the situation, and now you're trying to make them look rigid again, and you know,
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
I think the whole thing about this book is that music is unifying in that it's the only language where that they can all kind of relate to one another, because other than Gen being the go-between, they all can't speak at all to each other. Not really. They kind of can. Some of the, like the two Russians can, and the
Three Japanese people can.
Japanese people, but like. Without Gen, I'm sorry, that whole situation would have fallen apart.
Yeah.
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 So I guess maybe
Gen's my favorite, so it just.
Well, there was nothing to hate about him. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Like, he was perfect in every way. He was chivalrous until he was just like, I'm going to break from my traditions and feel my emotions. By the way, like he's probably like what, late 20s?
I thought like 28, 29, yeah.
Yeah. And remember, Carmen was 17.
Yeah.
Yes, but I liked Carmen because she, I felt, was one of the only ones that felt like a real character.
Yeah.
Well, she struggled. She struggled.
Yeah, she struggled, but the emotion she had, I really love you, and you're the first man I've ever met, but I love you. Like, that is a very kind of 17 thing to do, or like, I've never had a mom, please stroke my hair. Like, I feel like she's the only one that you can really actually relate to as a person.
Yeah.
Like Gen, Gen, by the end, I actually found kind of annoying, because I'm like, do you do anything wrong ever? Everything you do is right. Everything you say is right. You do your job right.
Well, I mean, he did at the close to the end. He got upset with Messner bugging him to translate, and because Gen was like, "This is not my job," and Messner was like, "Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Get up."
Well, one could say that his flaw is that he did everybody's bidding the entire time,
he's a doormat.
then by the end of it, when he said, "No, I don't want to do it," everybody was like, "What do you mean you don't want to do it? You've been doing it this whole time."
Yeah. And it was already too late by that time. Like he should have just said no at the very beginning.
Exactly.
And you know, and all of the mess at the end would have just happened then and there, and then we wouldn't have to have that stupid ending.
Okay, before we get to the end, do we want to talk about music as a theme?
Yeah.
I get how music is used at the theme, but I just don't think it was used as well as it could have been. Like I get the whole thing where music is the universal language. That's what everybody fell in love with, like her voice and how she can sing well. At the same time, it's kind of like there's so much more to it than that, as opposed to just that one line.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, there was one quote that basically summed up the entire what I thought she was getting at, and then until I found out that she was not a musician, then it just clicked in my mind. So the quote is, "Not everyone can be the artist. There have to be those who witness the art and love and appreciate what they've been privileged to see."
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that was just, not everybody can be the artist. So then there's all these people that are appreciating it, because there's only, her and Kato are the two musicians, and then that's kind of it. So it was more of a perspective of an outsider, which is difficult for us because we're the insiders. So we can't know what it's like to be a person who appreciates music but has not a musical bone in their body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's it, because like I think my problem when thinking about music as a theme in this book was that because so many of my classical musician friends were like, "This book is amazing," right? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, so this is gonna speak to me in a educated, learned, professional music way.
Mhm.
And you're right, you're totally correct. Like, that like once I found out that she wasn't a musician, I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
get all these cliches and all these stereotypes now.
Yeah, that was it.
So if we didn't have, yeah, like I totally agree. If we didn't have all of our education and all of this history with music behind us, I think this book would have been really compelling, right?
Mhm.
Because like
Yeah.
I was like when they were arguing, and then she was like, "I want my stuff," and then like they're like, "No, you're not gonna get your music," and she's like, "I'm gonna sing "Oh mio bambino Caro." I was like, I hate that aria. I hate it so much because it's so overdone, right?
Yeah.
But she's like, "Oh," and then like Benjamin was like, "Oh, my dead niece, sister, whatever," right? He had that like flashback, and then he was confused and he walked away, and I was like, I hate this song so much. But if I've never heard it or I didn't know what it was or the context of it, right? Then I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll go listen to it. Oh, this is a gorgeous piece.
So is that appealing to the masses? Like if you put in a piece that a lot of people are going to recognize when they're reading the book, they don't feel so isolated. They actually
Yeah,
feel.
I totally agree.
Yeah, it's a point of connection. Like I can talk to all the people we know and we can all talk about how much we hate Pachelbel's Canon in D.
Mhm.
But we can go to like I'm sorry, my mom and dad, oh God, I love them, but they're like, this song is really pretty. Why don't you use that? And they hit Canon in D and I'm like, no, 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 no. Epic no, never no. And because and then it's like you when you go to buy music and you see those CDs of like the greatest hits of classical music. It's like Moonlight Sonata, Four Seasons, Pachelbel, like all those ones that are those overdone ones.
Mhm.
So I guess as a non-musician, these are the ones that are the most popular. Like she's not gonna pick something out of like the tenth round of the Valkyries where that tiny little solo that's beautiful, but like this
Yeah.
is what you know as a non-musician.
Yeah, and actually, it's really funny. Like, I didn't know that she interviewed Renee Fleming, but now that you've mentioned that, all of these arias she's mentioned, Renee Fleming has recordings
Yeah.
of,
Oh yeah.
right? Including like the Rusalka. Like the Rusalka is one of my favorite ones. And I was like, oh, okay, I get where these names are. I think, see, that was the thing. Um, I mentioned before that I was kind of bummed that they didn't drop a lot of names when it comes to like composers or pieces, but it makes sense if this book was written for non-music majors. That you
Yeah.
don't want to put that much jargon in this book to confuse the people to stop reading it, right? You want it to be light.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think personally, if the music wasn't there for this thing, I mean, like for example, let's just say if we took away Roxanne Koss away from the picture, right, and it kept the story. I mean, obviously everyone would be dead a lot more sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think her being there, and then the author using her music as like this binding agent, like this universal language that spoke to everybody, was the reason why she could spin this story for so long and kept the peace in the house for so long.
You know,
And also, Roxanne was one of the more world famous people that was in the building. The VP, whatever.
exactly.
The fact that Roxanne was there, that was why the attention was on them, and that's why I think they decided to keep her. So she was kind of this pivotal character while being a boring character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, part of almost halfway through, I think, halfway through the book, I had a thought. I was like, how different would this book be if the plot was the same, however, the opera singer was male?
Oh, and there was no love. Well, I mean, there could have been.
Well, no, not necessarily there was no love triangle, but how different would it be if instead of a female character where everybody's like, oh, you're so beautiful and all this stuff and blah, 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 how different would it be if we had a male singer? What if he was a baritone who could sing opera really well? How would that change? Would he be, kicked and shot because he's a guy? So that was one of the questions I had. Like, what if she
he wouldn't have gotten that music because he wouldn't have sang All Mio Bambino Caro.
Okay, true, but he could have done other
He wouldn't
stuff.
have sang that because that's not a piece for his voice range.
Well, maybe I'm just saying that's
So
something.
because
No,
like,
no, no. I totally see where you're getting at. That admiration wouldn't be as strong, and him asking for things, they probably wouldn't bow and be like, oh, you get your own room,
yeah.
and you get your own like chicken and your own sandwiches and your food.
You're not gonna have a little boy
yeah.
still
And
snuggle with you in bed.
what's his name? And like the priest's friend Manuel
Mhm.
wouldn't have had that weird eargasm when she like talked to him over the phone. That was
Yeah.
so weird.
That was
That was
bizarre.
so weird.
That was so
I was like, what is going on here? That yeah.
Okay, so
I am shaking or quivering or something like that.
oh yeah.
That was almost like whoa.
He was just like sweet Jesus or something like that because it was like the voice of God. Oh my God. I sat there, I was like, this is some weird fetish that's going on. I don't understand it anymore.
Okay, Matt, that's the non-musician.
Yes.
We can't be in that. We don't know what it's like to hear beautiful singers all just out of the blue. Because we hear people all the time, and we rehearse with them.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've lost that sense of magical.
Oh, yeah.
Like whatever.
Like this now.
I know you're like behind the stage, so.
Yeah. I know what you're like when you're drunk. It's all good.
Yeah. We
Okay.
should probably move on. Sorry, I need to actually get going in about 10 minutes. I actually have to play at the viola class recital.
Oh my god, food.
So, okay, the ending, Amanda.
Oh my god, the ending.
What? The actual...
That does not make sense whatsoever.
Okay, someone want to explain what happened?
I can't. That last like 10 pages, I was kind of like, okay, they're kind of getting along. Maybe something will happen. Hey, everybody's dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? What just happened?
That wasn't
What
even
you-
the worst thing.
I
That
think
wasn't even the worst thing.
Epilogue.
I think
Epilogue
what
was the
made
worst.
it worse was the fact that we had all of this build up, and then the ending was just so unsatisfyingly abrupt
Yeah.
that it felt like we were left with nothing, and then the epilogue jump just it kind of left us with sorry, what?
It kind of felt like she had a page cap, and by the time she hit like a certain page, she's like, "Oh crap, I need to finish." Bleh, here's the ending.
Mm.
Well,
Is how I felt.
I mean, that or editors just cut up a bunch of stuff that she wanted to keep in.
Maybe.
Right? There could be that. But
But she almost needed to expand or do something to that ending, because it was going up, 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 and then it just went down and nothing.
Yeah, like
So as
we're doing spoiler alerts for this book, right?
okay, yeah, I mean, we already told everyone that they're dead, so I think we're past that already.
I'm so confused. What Gen and Roxanne? I don't understand. I just.
Well, it could be coping,
that's,
right? The fact that both of them lost someone special,
that
and they can only find someone for each other.
were in that situation.
Yeah, but it was just
Only
so.
they could know it.
I still
It was
have...
like,
Yes.
who's left that's alive? Oh, he's a dude. She's a girl. Bam, they get married.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, like, for example, I think what was happening was they had the same point of, I guess, similarity in the sense that both their lovers died simultaneously.
I
Right?
guess that's true.
Mr. Hosokawa died because he was trying to protect Carmen, and the bullet went right through him and her at the same time, and they both died, right? So obviously she would have confided in Gen, because Gen was the only other person that knew of kind of all the inner workings of their relationship and stuff, and wouldn't have had any other way of coping. Now, marriage is a little bit of an escalation from just like, oh, hey, I need to talk to you, like, be my shrink.
Even have sex with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, some guys really like older women, but I don't think it's this situation, right? I think it's just coping, that the fact that they found solace and comfort with each other because they had to cope somehow.
I wonder if it was easier for the author to describe it as a marriage rather than, so instead of saying and then they became companions because they were linked together forever because of this thing that happened, and the fact that they lost both their loves.
Yeah.
So for her to sort of maybe dumb it down and make it into like, oh, well, then they got married because that's just brought them together and that's what it is that maybe because she didn't have enough space to explain why they were companions instead, she just said, okay, they got married because that was easier to explain.
Yeah, because the book wasn't about, like, the book was about the captivity and then being in the palace, not her going through her mental journey of acceptance of the death of someone, right? Because I think that would have been like another book.
Yeah.
Just there. And she just probably didn't have the time to talk about it. The epilogue was kind of weird. I think, like, had they just ended it there before the epilogue, I would have been totally fine. Like, if they left it open, I'd be like, what happened? What happened? What just, like, I think that would have been okay as well.
Yeah.
I would have done that. Yeah.
Like, I wasn't put off with the fact that Gen and Roxanne were together. I mean, like, and it wasn't even a typical marriage. It wasn't like they had, like, a cathedral full of thousands of people. They did it quietly. Right? Yeah. With just Simon Theobald and Mrs. Theobald, right? And that's all they did, right? They just signed some papers, and then they got to celebrate with, like, their two close people, and then they only mentioned that they had talked to the vice president and then the father, and they really wanted the father to kind of officiate or ordain the wedding, and that's it, right? They only wanted a small group of people, so I think even in that sense, it wasn't like this extravagant big thing, which was out of character for Roxanne, which would be out of character for her.
Yeah.
So maybe.
But I agree with you though. If we took out the epilogue, I probably would have been okay. I still would have been upset over the ending, but I still would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have been in a almost a better headspace if the epilogue wasn't there. Just kind of, they came in, they took it over, they were rescued, it's done. But the epilogue now raises other questions, like when they go and they talk about, but what about the two girls? They never talked about
the two.
They only
mentioned one. Yes, they only mentioned one girl.
There wasn't two girls, there was one girl.
They killed both of them. Why was only one mentioned?
Yeah, so it just raised more questions. I'm like, I am now even less satisfied with how this book has ended. Because like you said, there's like that, this, oh, what?
Yeah.
And then you have this little thing that you just have a question mark after.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the questions that I wanted, to be raised. Like, my questions were like, what happened to them? Like, what happened to the group after? Not, why did they not mention those two girls in the group? Were they trying to be sexist because they didn't want to break the fact that girls were in the revolution as well? Like, why did they decide to get married? Like, like all these questions. I was just like, I don't.
I know. I think I finished the book and I'm like, what just happened in that past 10 pages? Like,
it was a lot to take in.
Yeah, you slog through 300 pages and then all of that action is in the first 10 and then the last 10.
Yeah.
So,
but the book isn't about the action.
Yeah. It just wasn't. It's not a fantasy book.
It's not about the action, but the stuff that almost.
But the build was.
Yeah. Not that it attracted them.
We knew it was going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it fell apart so quickly, so abruptly, and then just ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe that she's trying to break tropes from that too, right? With the whole the heroine, or I guess the second heroine of the book, and all these people need to have grandiose deaths, like when opera singers die, they have 6 minutes of a death lament before they die. even though the poison is supposed to kill them instantly, right? Like, maybe she was trying to break out of that so that not everyone gets a full closure. Like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. When she gets shot, she flashes back to see her mother in the forest dying because she's so poor, and that's why she joined the revolutionaries, right?
Yeah.
So maybe she was. Yeah, but you know what I mean? But maybe she didn't give us that because she wanted to break those tropes and she didn't want to kind of get in those things, so that way we wouldn't get it. So maybe she was trying new things. I don't know.
But it's a shame that you introduce a character like Carmen that is so believable as a character, and then just kind of throw her away at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was kind of what upset me, especially when it went into the, well, why didn't they mention Beatrice and Carmen? And I'm like, that's right. Like, I actually got kind of attached to this character, and then she's just nothing.
Yeah, like I said, for me, questions that I just didn't want to have asked.
Yeah, exactly.
That was your what is it? Your story arc, your character arc for a lot of the characters just sort of end.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
have a full satisfying arc. You just and that's
Yeah.
the same thing what you were saying with the whole book. You would get this one character, you'd get them, and then they never return.
Yeah.
So you want that full arc because otherwise it just leaves everybody hanging, going, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I ended up. Like, I finished the book, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. What?
Mhm.
I'm done?
Yeah.
And I remember going at the very end where it has that PS, that interviews. I'm like, please tell me what happens. Please tell me what happens. Oh, nothing.
I didn't have that thing, so I don't know.
It's not really. It's not really much about.
No,
It's
more about
like,
her, not about the book.
Yeah, it's basically her saying like, this is how you enjoy music.
Okay.
At the end of the book.
Do
There's
we
no explanation.
need to wrap up?
Yeah, I do need to get going.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, this was really, really fun. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, like, and if the author ever watches this, I actually did enjoy reading your book. It was interesting to kind of see it from a different perspective, the music from a different perspective. I think it was just maybe like there was just some things that were being tried out that I just couldn't get myself into, and maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. Like all this high fantasy stuff. Maybe it just didn't allow me to really enjoy this book. Maybe like in a couple of years, if I read this again, I might enjoy it in a little bit of like a better way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's there. So I think our next meet we had decided on a date, but we
May
hadn't.
25th.
Yes, May 25th. So if you guys are out there, that's the next day that we're going to be doing this. And we'll figure out a time if this time works for everybody. I mean, just like I said, I just found out I had to play in this concert 2 days ago. So yeah, great, isn't it? Yeah, May 25th. And the May pick is Karen's pick, which is Chimes.
The
The
Chimes by Ann Smaill.
Yeah. So if you guys don't mind picking that up sometime, it's also there you go. It's like a really short read too. It's like 300 pages, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
this
yeah.
was like 100 pages. It just felt like 8.
And guys, I got really excited because it's got Solfa with the hand.
So bad. Yay, could
So maybe,
die.
this might be like a lot more kind of like our kind of style of like classically trained classical like novel kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fantasy, so.
Maybe she uses Solfa to like release like fireball magic on people.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And she vibratos to like shake the tremors of their souls and rips it out of their.
And power.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop the broadcast here, but thank you everybody. We'll put this
Thanks,
up. Yeah. Everybody have a good night. I do need to get running, so I'll be like just dashing now. All
Alright, have a great one.
Bye.
right. Have a good one. See you guys later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, Poon.